Talk about low-budget flights. No food or movies? I'm out of here. I like running better. Welcome back, YouTube viewers, to another video. So, I finally finished rewatching Sonic X. Not just that I finished rewatching it, but I finally finished the show after about 8 years. So, back in, say, I think it was 2017, I was watching Sonic X for the first time, and it was the first time I saw something that I could say was so bad it's good. To this day, I still think that is a stupid phrase, so bad it's good, but I think it does genuinely apply to Sonic X, and I've talked about that when I reviewed the first 2 seasons, but as I was watching the show back then, look, I could say it was bad, but I was entertained. But then I got to season 3, and I hated it. You guys cannot understand just how much I hated Sonic X Season 3 the first time I watched it. I hated it so much that I didn't even watch the last 2 episodes, maybe the last 3 episodes. I just said, this show is terrible, I'm not going to finish it. Flash forward a few years to 2022, I decided, I'll rewatch this show, but I hated Season 3 so much, I'm just going to watch Seasons 1 and 2 and then be done with it. But this year I finally decided, not only will I see Seasons 1 and 2 again, I will watch all of Season 3 because you always see these people saying how great Sonic X Season 3 is. Guys, the Meta X Saga is a masterpiece or whatever. Or, look, no disrespect to Chow Mix. I like a lot of his videos. But and you can have your own opinion, but he has a video called Revisiting the Meta X Saga, the greatest Sonic story of all time. Read more. Okay, but, look, even on rewatch, I was really hoping I would like Sonic X Season 3. I really wanted to like this season. And while I don't hate it the way I used to, I just think it's boring. It's lame. I was going to do, this video was originally planned to be, I was going to review almost every single episode of the season like I did for the first 2 seasons, but I just couldn't do it. Season 3 is just so dry and burned me out so much. I just didn't want to review a bunch of episodes because that would take too long. I don't care. Instead, I'm just going to talk about some of the characters I think are worth talking about and give a few final thoughts on Sonic X as a whole. I want to talk about Shadow first because this season just is kind of weird for Shadow. So, Rouge just wandering around Eggman's spaceship and finds out that Shadow is alive and it's sealed inside some kind of capsule. And then she releases him and he has amnesia! Yay! Also, can I say how much of a missed opportunity is that this show never introduced Omega? I mean, the Chaotix were here. They do Shadow has amnesia. They clearly knew what Sonic Heroes was. They just didn't put Omega in there. Why not? But anyway, then Shadow gets freed, he temporarily works for Eggman, then he and Rouge just go around space, fighting against the Meta-Rex, collecting the Chaos Emeralds, and something about Shadow's story here I never really liked it that much. Like, look, I think the way the amnesia story in the games was wrapped up in Shadow the Hedgehog was very sloppy. If you watch my previous Sonic video, you know I really hate the Shadow the Hedgehog game, but as I said there, whenever I talk about Sonic Heroes at some point in my ranking every Shadow version of Shadow, I don't think the amnesia plot was inherently a bad idea. So I'm not super opposed to that Sonic X adapted that story. The problem is it's just not executed well because 1, Shadow never regains his memories, and 2, after a while, he just stops caring that he even has amnesia, which you can say, oh, it's character development, sure, but even the other characters just eventually stop bringing it up. Like, it's not really a thing anymore, which is just kind of weird. I don't know. I mean, yeah, he seems to not remember anything, though. He doesn't even remember Shadow the Hedgehog. Why does that name haunt him? And that gruesome image. That is a personal joke to myself. For some reason, whenever I see the opening scene of Shadow the Hedgehog now, I just start laughing. Because Jason Griffith's vocal delivery is so stilted. Speaking of Jason Griffith's vocal delivery, oh boy, does it stink! Look, I know I've really ragged on Jason Griffith a lot on this channel, and I don't want to insult the guy or anything, because he's not a bad voice actor. I loved his Jet the Hawk, but I thought his Sonic is just, it's really bad. Like, he is my least favorite Sonic voice. As for Shadow, yeah, he's my least favorite. He's not terrible, but He just sounds so much like Sonic. When they're in the same scene, it's just super distracting. I already talked about this in the last video I did on Sonic X, but it needs to be said again. And also, I just think some of his stories here, like the whole revolutionary episode, are just really sloppy. Like, why does he care about Molly? Maybe she reminds him of Maria? I mean, maybe, but that's never really brought up because, the whole amnesia thing, but she doesn't even trigger any memories in him. And look, I know I watched the show dubbed, I didn't watch it subbed, but I don't care about that episode. Everyone always talks about how great the episode is and how tragic it is, and yeah, it's not the worst episode or anything. I thought it was good, I guess, but I don't know. It just since I don't care about Shadow this season, the show never really gave me much reason to care about Shadow. Like, he dies at the end of the show again. Okay, yeah, we know this time he's not actually dead, but it feels like they knew they weren't going to get a fourth season, but for some reason they just decided to throw in, oh guys, Shadow sacrificed himself again, and this time the show does not even dwell on it. Because almost immediately after you have Eggman and Rouge implying they totally know that Shadow isn't dead. At least Eggman doesn't, and Rouge knows Eggman knows that. Which has left me wondering what's even the point, and they're just trying to repeat drama that was already done way better before with the whole Shadow sacrificing himself thing. I mean, also just side note about him, when you get to the episode The Cosmo Conspiracy, I wanted him to kill Cosmo. Like, I just didn't care. I've heard some people say that this is their least favorite version of Shadow strictly because he was willing to kill a child, but if you see why, I think he was kind of justified, honestly. And I don't care about Cosmo at all, and Shadow, it's not like Shadow remembers Maria's wish or anything like that, so I don't know. Maybe he wouldn't have I mean, I don't think Shadow's an evil guy who only actually does good things because of Maria's wish. I think he's a genuinely good guy regardless of the wish, but I don't know, whatever. After that ramble, time to talk about Tails and Cosmo. Yay! Guys, why do you all why are so many people obsessed with this ship? Like, nobody finds that a little weird because these characters are like 9 or 10 years old, and yet you, as well as this show, are obsessed and so adamant in shipping these two. Like, nobody sees any problems with that. Just me. Like, it's one thing to say, "Oh, that's cute." It's another thing to say, "We are gonna take this seriously and make it dramatic." Nobody has a problem with that. Just me, huh? Even regardless of that, I said before my previous Sonic X videos, I don't care about this version of Tails. He's whatever. And Cosmo is the definition of a character I am just completely apathetic towards. People will say, what about Cosmo's sacrifice at the end? Wasn't that so sad? No. Cosmo is not even a character until halfway through this season. She exists to give exposition for the first 2 episodes of the season, and then she just hangs around for a while. And it's not like that time is used to build up her bonds with the other characters or anything like that. She is just there for the sake of being there. And then all of a sudden the show wants you to care about her so badly. But, like, what? What is her personality? Please tell me, what is her personality? Why should I care about Cosmo? She's nervous, I guess, and kind of shy, maybe. Like, what does she do? What is her purpose in the team? She knows some alien stuff. I mean, yeah, but most of the conflicts are basically all resolved by the other characters. Cosmo does barely anything. And then we get to the whole part I mentioned before where Shadow's trying to kill Cosmo because he knows that she's secretly a Metarex spy. Yeah, Shadow, I kind of think you were right about trying to kill her. Like, and also, as I said before, I don't care about Cosmo. So if she died, I just wouldn't care. I actually maybe cheer. And just like her whole backstory about her sister and the other members of her alien species, just it comes in so late. Which, boy, I'll get to that later. It just doesn't really leave much of an impression. And yeah, like, why is this show so obsessed with trying to ship her and Tails? Like, it's genuinely kind of weird and uncomfortable. And then at the end, when Tails is bawling his eyes out to Sonic about how, oh, I'm so sad that I had to shoot my girlfriend. Ah, like, Tails. Like, look, if I cared about Cosmo and Tails, or even just one of them, that scene would be emotional. but the show gives you no reason to care about them. What flimsy explanation does it give you to care about them? Because the show says so. That is not good writing. Look, I'm not going to pretend I'm some kind of master writer or anything, but I don't think this is exactly A-level writing, not even B. More like the not quite the bottom of the barrel, but not high up at all. Now time to roast the Metarex, because I think these guys are just bad villains. I know you're going to say, but the Metarex have such cool designs. Yeah, they do look really cool, but they are the definition of style and no substance. And there's just one thing I have to say. Dark Oak's voice is not menacing, at least to me. It's almost laughable. Almost, not quite though, but also, like, are you telling me that Supersonic couldn't defeat this guy in the beginning? He's Supersonic. Whatever. I think the Metarex are vaguely interesting. The problem is just that the show never gives enough for me to care. Starting off with, their plan makes absolutely no sense. Even if you consider their backstory, their plan to take all the planet eggs and then go to this, like, what's some kind of wormhole or galactic event that only happens every 1,000 years and merge all planets into one planet, and then they want to turn all flesh life into plant life? Why? I mean, it's not like they're plant life. They are flesh beings in robot suits. If their plan were to turn everyone into cyborgs or something, that would make sense, but why do they want to turn everyone into plant people? You say, well, look at their backstory. What does their backstory have to do with that? Their backstory is about how they were the male part of Cosmo's species, and okay, first of all, it's kind of weird that they're supposed to be the same species, but all the males are like animal people, and all the women are like plant people for some reason. I don't get how that works, but anyway, so they were fighting some kind of war or something, and the guys who become the Metarex mess with their genes to evolve themselves or something and turn into giant dinosaur people, and they become power hungry or something, and then all the women leave the planet and the men become the Metarex. And also, look, I always hate it when people say that movie is racist, that show is sexist or whatever, but I have to say, like, I know it wasn't intentional, but it's a little iffy that you're seriously telling me that every single male member of this alien species, all the males, became evil alien warlords, and every single female was this nice, peaceful, kind person who just wanted to leave war and violence behind. Like, are you seriously gonna tell me that? Like, no one thought that was kind of weird? And the Metarex, as villains, just, yeah, they have cool designs, decently menacing voices, but they just don't leave an impression because most of them don't get the chance to do anything. Like, can you name me a single personality trait from these guys? Dark Oak is the leader, which is not a personality trait. He's especially evil, I guess. Zelkova is he's brutish. He's angry. He's mean. And then the other three guys just kind of exist. Like, I think the one who appears in the Dark Sonic episode, which okay, I need to talk about that really quickly. Dark Sonic is lame. Cool design, but people act like he's the greatest thing ever, but Dark Sonic appears for what? A minute at most? He barely does anything. The transformation is giving no explanation as to how it would even work, and then it just disappears and is never mentioned ever again. And what? Sonic calms down because Eggman says, "I'm disappointed in you, Sonic," which could actually be a good scene, but the way the vocal delivery is, it just sounds like Eggman is telling Sonic, like he's this teacher or something, saying, "Oh, I'm so disappointed in you, student. How could you do that?" And then you know the Eggman saying, "It's one thing to threaten and imprison people, but it's another thing to actually hurt them." But that's whatever. But what do we learn from the Metarex guy in that episode? He's extra mean or something. Yeah, see, look, you can like this. If you want, I'm not gonna stop you. But why do you like this? Beyond it looks cool. Seriously, I want to know. Comment down below what you find interesting about the Metarex. I mean, I guess Zelkova has slightly more personality than the other guys. I mean, he gets to have a cool fight with Knuckles, and he gets to break his knuckles, which is a pretty cool image. And then he falls into lava, which is supposed to mirror the Metal Sonic's death in the Sonic OVA, which I've never seen, so it doesn't have as much of an impression on me. But he's kind of interesting, maybe, sort of. Just the Metarex are such weak villains, and I mean that in terms of writing, not in terms of power scaling. So, yeah, overall, I think Sonic X Season 3 is pretty bad. Now, you might say, wow, you trashed that really hard, didn't you? But ultimately, I think Sonic X Season 3 is something like a 5 out of 10, maybe a 4 out of 10. It's just very mediocre. Its biggest problem is that it's just boring. The early episodes especially are just the worst. They are such slogs to get through. I considered quitting the show multiple times just because of how dull it was getting. And yeah, I have to say this though, I did like the final episode. Ignoring Cosmo's sacrifice, which I didn't care about, and Shadow's sacrifice. The final scenes of the characters back on Mobius, talking about what they've got for themselves in store. Chris saying he's gonna live on Angel Island for a bit until Eggman says, "I can get you home, kid, with this rocket." And yeah, you getting back to our world is just a fluke. You're gonna have to go back to Earth. You're never gonna see us again. So this is so long to everyone. We get some bits implying that Shadow's alive. Team Sonic is heading out for another adventure, and Rouge says he's going to join the team. I don't want a season 4 of this show, but I don't know. I guess it'd be kind of cool to see how that would play out. Maybe Knuckles and Rouge would finally have another interaction, because their entire dynamic is basically non-existent in this season. They get a few scenes, and that's it. Other stuff to talk about season 3, like the Chaotix. They're pretty funny. I like seeing them. They definitely spiced up the show, but overall, this season was just bad. As for Sonic X as a whole, what do I think of the series now that all is said and done? After all 3 of these videos, it's a 6 out of 10. As I said before many times, and I'll say it again, Seasons 1 and 2 are so bad it's good. They have some genuinely really good parts I did like, but overall, they are not very good, but they are endlessly entertaining. They just have so much energy to them. They just feel like someone was just trying to pump out as much insanity as possible. And yeah, it is entertaining, I'll give them that. Season 2 slightly dials back on this, but is helped because the show had a lot of all those human characters, but sure. I mean, I'd like to see 1,000 human characters in Sonic, but they did have a lot of personality. They were funny, Sam Speed, Mr. Stewart, Chris Grandpa, Mr. Tanaka, Topaz, the president, the vice president, I guess Ella, sort of, Chris Parents. But when you get to season 3, so much of that is just gone. Instead, it's replaced with boring melodrama about characters I couldn't care less about a very boring story that just goes on and on forever. Yeah. If someone asked me, what do you think the definitive Sonic cartoon is, I would tell them, that does not exist. I can tell you what the best Sonic show is, Sonic Boom easily, sad I am at second place, but I've trashed this show a lot. I really have. For as much as I've complimented it, I've also trashed it a lot. But it's kind of sad to me that we've had 7 Sonic shows if you count the Knuckles series, and only 2 of them were good. Like, that's just pretty depressing. But yeah, I mean, maybe a few years I'll probably rewatch the show again, just seasons 1 and 2 though. But overall, I just don't get the hype for this show. I think a lot of it just comes from the fact that a lot of people you see talk about Sonic online, they grew up with this show. It introduced them to the franchise, or at least made them bigger fans. And yeah, I get it. I'm thankful to this show for existing. I mean, it gave us Mike Pollock as Eggman, for one thing, Dan Green as Knuckles, Kathleen Delaney as Rouge, gave us some other stuff like Dark Sonic, was, yeah. Much as I was disappointed by him actually appearing in the show, the idea of Dark Sonic is cool, I guess, and the fans have done a lot with it. It's an interesting show that I'll always have a good time discussing because yeah, it definitely is pretty unique and did a lot for this franchise, but just by itself, like just as a piece of entertainment, it's not that good. Well, I still enjoy talking about it, and as much as it was a slog to get through season 3, I still enjoy making this video on this whole Sonic X retrospective. That's all for now, and remember to stay way past cool.